What if the one you love is silently slipping away from you? Have you ever thought about it? Sometimes the indications of a relationship's end are subtle, even silent, yet they have a huge impact, unlike when conflicts break out or people abruptly leave. The truth is that the majority of guys fail to notice these indicators. However, we will jointly discover them today. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're committed to building a loving relationship based on mutual understanding and connection. Before we go any further, these 10 red flags could alter the course of your life irrevocably, so be sure to read till the conclusion. Think about it. A house doesn't just fall apart. The process begins with cracks, very small ones. The fissures widen with the passage of time, and eventually the whole structure gives way. A lot of the same rules apply to relationships as well. It is the accumulation of these minor, apparently unimportant signals that causes the crisis to escalate. Being able to spot these warning signs in a loved one early on can be the difference between losing them and strengthening your bond with them. Let's take a look at these subtle red flags one by one and see if we can't salvage your relationship by learning to recognize them. Sign 1: she stops sharing her day with you. Those early days of your relationship are fresh in your mind. You vividly recall the electrifying energy that permeated every discussion, as people were really interested in hearing about each other's day. Every little thing, like her hilarious interaction with a total stranger or her discovery of a new coffee shop, would be recounted by her. With each story she recounted, you would grow closer to her, participate in her laughter at life's tiny moments, and connect with her on a deeper level. Even though you were physically separated, the way you were able to communicate made you feel as though you were sharing in each other's daily lives. A shift occurred, though. Gradually, you were aware that she was no longer engaging in casual conversation. She was mum on the details of her lunch with pals and the stimulating discussion she had on the job. It seemed like the enthusiasm for sharing had waned. Rather, if you were to inquire about her day, she would respond with a brief and somewhat dismissive statement. It was fine. That would be all. Missing information. Nothing exciting. At first you might ignore it, but that's just if you're a guy. She might simply be exhausted. Perhaps she's just having a rough day. But hear me out. If there is complete quiet, it means that bigger things are going on. When people cease talking about their day, it's usually because they are emotionally withdrawing. What binds two hearts together is the sharing of information, the good times and the bad. If she suddenly stops doing it, it's a sign that she's unconsciously beginning to put some space between herself and you. Do you recall the days when she could wax poetic about the latest flick she watched, or her friends' wild antics for hours on end? The fact that she wanted you to be a part of her life showed how much she cared. You must wonder why she isn't doing that anymore if it has stopped happening. Could it be my fault? Or is she just emotionally distant and withdrawing? A change can be made here. Do your best to engage her rather than allowing this quiet to turn into an emotional chasm. Inquire about the ins and outs of her day, not merely the superficial details. Make it clear that you value her perspective by asking her about her life and the challenges she has faced since you left. Rekindling that emotional intimacy is as simple as demonstrating interest. Instead of sitting back and waiting for her to come to you, be the one to initiate conversation and reassure her that you are still there for her no matter what. Sign 2: physical affection starts to fade. Can you recall the initial sensation of her hand on yours? Perhaps it happened when you were strolling down the street. Or maybe it was in the middle of a late night discussion. Everything seemed to revolve on that one touch, her hand meeting yours. It was close, one-on-one, and convincing of her undivided attention. The way she'd snuggle up to you, in an embrace as you cooked or rest, her head on your shoulder as you watched a movie. Feeling noticed, cherished, and desired was the result. But gradually, without any prior notice, those touches started to disappear. You might have first disregarded it, thinking that maybe she's simply really busy. As time passes, though, her level of affection wanes. When you try to hold her hand, she either quickly withdraws or hugs you briefly before moving away. There is no longer the warmth and connection that used to envelop you. Now there is a chilly chasm. I'd want to ask you why this occurs. Facial displays of affection convey the depth of one's emotional connection. She withdraws emotionally as much as her body does when she physically pulls away. She is withdrawing because of something going on behind the scenes. She may be experiencing feelings of estrangement or an unfulfilled emotional need. This, however, is not a hopeless situation. You can intervene if her physical withdrawal indicates an emotional separation from you. You can reassure her to the point that she feels comfortable returning. Offering affection in a genuine and unforced manner is the key. To begin, try holding her hand, drawing her closer while you watch TV, or simply embracing her to express your affection. Avoid waiting for her to take the lead. She may rediscover the joy of physical proximity if you express your affection and bring back the sensation of being close to you. Make sure this doesn't turn into an avoidance pattern. Make yourself physically and emotionally available to her so she can rediscover that connection. Sign 3. She becomes more independent. In the beginning of your relationship, you most likely did everything together. No matter what, you could always count on each other to be there for each other. Whether it was in the kitchen, watching TV, or just hanging out on a Sunday. We worked as a team on every single plan and decision. You were both aware of one another's whereabouts and activities. Parting ways appeared to be an insurmountable obstacle. However, something out of the ordinary becomes apparent as time goes on. She has been increasing the amount of time she spends with loved ones. She's starting to do things on her own, like attending gatherings that she used to do with you, and no one even asks, "Hey, would you be interested in coming?" As if she were constructing a life apart from you, it seems. Maybe you even take it as an indication that she's maturing, or that she simply needs space at first. But I must inquire, when was the most recent occasion when she expressed an interest in engaging in an activity with you? How long has it been since she extended an invitation to do something together? To make a memory? She can be emotionally distant from you if she's becoming more self-reliant. Now for the hard part, if this keeps up, she may be mentally planning to go. I don't mean you should micromanage her or try to keep her from doing what makes her happy. That has nothing to do with this. The key is to reflect about the last time you did anything to make her feel unique and appreciated. Is the fact that she no longer feels needed or wanted the reason she stopped telling me about her life? Perhaps she has grown more self-reliant as a result of her perception that she has been navigating this relationship on her own for some time. You should seize this opportunity to reassert your desire to be involved in her life. Remind her that you want to be there for her when she's on her own, but also that you want her to be independent. Inviting her to share your life is the first step. Don't force her to look for happiness somewhere else. Being a spouse who encourages her freedom while maintaining a close relationship is your responsibility in her life. Sign 4. She no longer compliments you. In your mind, return to the moment when her kind words kept coming back to you. Are the times when she complimented your outfit choice or your smile fresh in your mind? You felt liked, valued, and confident after receiving those small praises. Your confidence would soar whenever she lauded you, since it was like hearing affirmation of your value. She spoke to you gently, as if whispering her love for you in your ear. Those compliments, however, are now extremely rare. She has completely forgotten that you're wearing the very blouse she adored. When you crack a joke, she usually bursts out laughing, but now she merely nods or smiles half-heartedly. You might have thought, maybe she's just busy, or she's not as expressive as she used to be at first, but after a while, you start to notice something. Her compliments, which were once plentiful, have gone entirely. For the time being, let's stand back a little. Acknowledgements are more than surface-level flattery. They convey genuine feelings of adoration and affection. Her gradual withdrawal of her emotional investment in you may be indicated by the fact that she stops praising you. Maybe she's just not emotionally invested in paying attention to you anymore, rather than that she has stopped noticing you altogether. A relationship's emotional fuel. Compliments make you feel valued, appreciated, and acknowledged. It could seem like the intensity is fading when they cease. Have you ever pondered the reasons for this occurrence? Are the days when she made you feel like her only priority still fresh in your mind? Is she no longer feeling the need to tell you how much she loves you because she has found someone else, or because something has changed in your relationship? The most important thing to remember is that you can always try to reawaken that flame. Your capacity to reawaken the memory of the captivating individual you previously were lies in your ability to do just that. It is not about imposing praise or requesting undivided attention. Rather, you ought to direct your attention towards actions that entice her to provide you further compliments. You can reawaken that sense of awe and reverence by dressing nicely, being compassionate, or even simply recalling the wonderful times you've spent together. Consider the last time you gave her a praise. Positive reinforcement is two-sided. Maybe you too stopped paying attention to her if she stopped seeing you. You may discover that the admiration and appreciation between you two begin to flow freely again if you rekindle that flame by honestly complimenting her. Sign 5, she becomes defensive or angry over small things. When were the days when you two seemed to have it all figured out? When she genuinely listened when you shared anything, your aspirations, your desires, or even the tiniest annoyance. She was there for you no matter what, and she would never pass judgment. You two had an understanding, and disagreements didn't escalate into full-blown arguments because of that. However, a change has occurred recently. When you inquire about her day, she becomes irritated and snaps back. She goes on the defensive and accuses you of criticizing her after you make a benign remark about something little, like the fact that the dishes are piling up. Everything seems to irritate her, and the tension in the room is rising. She seems to have put up a barrier between you, and your attempts to communicate with her are met with defensiveness. Doesn't it annoy you? You could have written it off at first, as nothing more than a lousy mood or stress at work. You begin to feel like you need to tread carefully since these little triggers appear to be getting worse with time. It seems like everything you say or do could trigger her. Is this occurring more frequently now? The truth is that people's defensiveness or anger about insignificant issues is usually an indication of underlying emotional pain or unresolved tension. Perhaps she is experiencing feelings of emotional neglect, miscommunication, or undervaluation. These minor disagreements aren't about the dishes or the weather. They're about long-suppressed emotions. The key point, though, is that this in no way indicates the end of the partnership. It merely indicates that a change is necessary. Make an effort to make her feel comfortable enough to open up instead of getting into that defensive back and forth. In a kind, accusation-free voice, ask her, "Is everything okay? You seem upset." Be present to listen without passing judgment. All it takes sometimes is for her to feel safe enough to talk about how she really feels. Defensiveness typically disappears when one listens with empathy. Keep in mind that no relationship is perfect. The most important thing is to see these minor disagreements as signals. The tension can be worked through if you are patient and honest with her. In order to help her feel heard, you must demonstrate that you are not just willing to argue, but also willing to be by her side as you both work through this together. Sign 6. She shows less interest in your hobbies and activities. Recall the beginning of your relationship. Perhaps you were both eager to finally spend time with someone who shared your enthusiasm for a certain pastime. Sharing interests became a great way to connect, whether it was a passion for gaming, hiking, or even just the same TV series. She wanted to get to know you better. Therefore, she took an honest interest in your interests. Maybe you and she went to a lot of events or spent a lot of time playing games, and it always seemed like everything was better with her there. But now it's hard to ignore the fact that she's showing less enthusiasm for your interests. She stops showing enthusiasm whenever you discuss a topic you're enthusiastic about and stops joining you for your weekly activities. Perhaps she used to pay close attention when you described your job or favorite show, but now she tends to look away or responds with vague phrases like, "That's nice," or "Sounds cool." When two people used to click so well because they had similar interests, this change can be difficult. But what causes it to occur? Someone may be emotionally withdrawing if they lose interest in the things you enjoy. They may no longer feel connected to you, or may no longer value the time and effort you put into your shared activities. But this isn't necessarily the last chapter. It may be time to discover new interests to share if she's no longer interested in your pastimes. To find out what she's into right now, you should inquire. Perhaps she is just waiting for you to take an interest in something she finds fascinating. Or perhaps she is just bored. Make time for her interest to reignite that flame. Make it clear that you're interested in spending time with her and not just talking about your own hobbies. Have you made an effort to take her somewhere new or introduce her to something she would enjoy? Part of the fun of being in a relationship is learning new things together. But it's easy to become stuck in a rut and forget that. By presenting new experiences, you may restore the excitement. You may make her feel more at ease and maybe even find a new mutual interest by showing an interest in her interests and hobbies. Sign 7. She's more focused on herself than on you. Can you recall the times when the two of you were completely smitten with one another? When you two would sit down for hours upon hours of conversation, laughter, and future planning. Whenever one of you had good news or needed someone to talk to when things were rough, the two of you were there. When you were with each other, helping each other out and developing as a couple, it seemed like everything revolved around you. It was as if you were both fully immersed in this connection, exchanging thoughts and feelings at every turn. Things, however, are beginning to feel different now. She seems utterly absorbed in her own thoughts and feelings. Whenever you two are together, suddenly you find yourself on the periphery, almost like an observer in your own relationship, while she engrosses herself in her phone, chats about her friends, or concentrates on her personal aspirations. You attempt to lighten the mood or tell her about your day, but she seems engrossed in her own thoughts and has no idea what you're getting at. You feel that you're the one who has to continually seek her attention now that she's less involved in your life. Keep in mind that this isn't always an indication that she's losing interest in you. This could be an indication that she is feeling emotionally distant or abandoned, which would explain why she is concentrating on herself more. Someone may be going through a tough time in her life, or perhaps she simply feels that she has lost her identity. Relationships can easily engulf people to the point that they lose sight of what it is to be themselves. But here's the thing, balance is essential in relationships. When one partner is always taking from the other, it can't be healthy. Consider the beginning of your relationship. You two were very much in sync when it came to your aspirations, goals, and wishes. Inspiring, supporting, and making each other feel valued were all ways you were a part of each other's life. Maybe we could bring up the subject of getting back together now that she seems more concerned with herself. Have you recently inquired as to her hopes, dreams, and joys? When one spouse stops inquiring about the other's wants and needs, it can lead to a partnership that feels unbalanced. Get the ball rolling. Inquire about her true state of mind, her recent thoughts and feelings, and ways you two might be there for one another emotionally. Make it clear that you care about more than just her. You care about the relationship and the happiness you both deserve. You may remind her of the bond you shared by reestablishing that feeling of caring and understanding, which was always about more than just you two. Sign 8, she avoids serious conversations. Imagine you were trying to carry on a meaningful discussion with her not long ago. Maybe you wanted to discuss your plans for the future, or some problems you wanted to resolve. But every time you attempted, she would shift the focus or redirect the conversation. You may have first dismissed it, reasoning that perhaps she was simply not in the mood, or that the timing wasn't ideal. The more often this occurs, though, the more you begin to question why she refuses to discuss important topics. You've been with your partner for a while, so you know that there will be good times and bad. Disputes are inevitable, but so is the need to discuss what really matters: your hopes for the future, your necessities, your aspirations, and the little things that bring you joy. Therefore, it's easy to feel neglected or like you're the only one making an effort in the relationship. When she begins to avoid these serious talks, tell me what's going on. When people avoid deep discussions, it's usually because they're struggling with emotions like fear, isolation, or overwhelm. Either she is afraid to speak up, or she doesn't know how to handle a difficult situation. The problem is that it gets more difficult to resume meaningful contact as the avoidance persists. When was the last occasion that you paid close attention to her worries? Are you expecting her to be just as honest and open with you as you have been with her? When two people are in a relationship, they need to talk about everything, even if it's awkward or hard. Rather than trying to force someone to open up, the goal should be to provide an environment where they may do so in complete safety. When she attempts to sidestep a serious topic in the future, be gentle. Instead, softly express your readiness to listen and your appreciation for her feelings and opinions. Be honest about how you feel and why you think it's crucial that you and your partner have these conversations. She could be more forthcoming. If she believes there will be no criticism or confrontation as a result of the discussion. Sign 9. You feel like you're constantly chasing her. Can you recall the days when she also pursued you? Remember when you were just starting out in your relationship, and she was the one who would initiate contact, make plans, and seem genuinely interested in spending time with you? Back then, you two seemed to care just as much about one another as everybody else. You two embarked on an exhilarating voyage together, loving and wanting each other and making each other feel desirable. However, you suddenly feel as though you are the one who is constantly being pursued. You initiate contact via text message, plot out your actions, and do whatever it takes to keep things going. It's as if you're the only one making an effort to maintain the connection alive. And you can't help but wonder why she isn't as enthralled by you as you are by her. You begin to feel fatigued, as if you were chasing after an elusive target who is gradually slipping away. It might be exhausting to feel this way. When you put your heart and soul into a relationship, it's only normal to want to be rewarded. When both partners are actively involved and willing to put out effort, relationships flourish. On the other hand, emotional exhaustion and anger might set up if one person is perpetually the pursuer. This is the most important part. Chasing after someone isn't necessarily about love. It could be an attempt to satisfy some other need. Consider why you feel the need to pursue her all the time. Does your motivation stem from a desire for her love or from an attempt to win her affection? Love should be given and received freely in relationships, not earned. Has it occurred to you to try expressing your feelings to her? In the midst of all the running around, we forget to stop and say how we really feel. This isn't an attempt to belittle her efforts. Rather, it's a statement about your desire for a partnership in which each partner gives their all to the relationship. When someone is unwilling to compromise, it's not worth your time to pursue them. You may fix the imbalance in your relationship by talking to each other honestly and openly. Make sure she knows how critical it is that you both give it your all. Once she gets your feelings, she may be more than happy to pitch in and help. After that, you won't have to keep chasing after each other, and you'll both experience a greater sense of fulfillment in your relationship. Sign 10. You're feeling like you're walking on eggshells around her. Have you ever worried that what you're about to say to your spouse would irritate or anger her? If so, have you ever hesitated before speaking? Or maybe you're afraid she'll react negatively if you bring up particular subjects or do certain things, so you avoid them. You may be treading carefully, which is a subtle indication that she may be moving away from you. If this seems familiar, remember the first few dates you went on. Lightheartedness, carefreeness, and excitement pervaded the relationship in its early stages. You were open and honest with one another, whether it was about lighthearted anecdotes or heavy topics, and you shared stories and made each other laugh. Because of the abundance of trust, familiarity, and true understanding, there was no anxiety about saying something inappropriate. But maybe things have changed with time. Perhaps you've observed that she becomes defensive, or even withdraws when you broach certain topics. Maybe she's more reticent than before, or maybe you feel like you can't be really honest without triggering criticism or conflict. It seems like everyone is watching everything you say, and you have to gauge her emotions before speaking. It's exhausting, isn't it? When you're in a relationship like this, you feel like you have to watch your step, lest the other person take offense or become distant. Then what exactly is happening? For some reason, you just can't seem to be yourself while she's there. When this happens, it's usually because she hasn't dealt with or is avoiding discussing some underlying issue between the two of you. She may be emotionally aloof from you for reasons you don't understand, such as her own problems or unspoken complaints. Anxiety grows in the relationship as these unspoken difficulties persist. Before you realize it, you're on edge all the time, attempting to keep the peace. Neither of you is getting what you need from this, so keep that in mind. You shouldn't feel like you have to be extra careful in any relationship. In a happy relationship, each person is able to talk about how they really feel without worrying that the other will judge them or hurt them. Asking yourself, what's really going on here, might help you stop treading on anyone's toes. When was the last time we were able to converse freely? Consider an instance when you felt her complete comprehension. When there was no tension between you two, could you describe what it was like to simply converse and share? How long has it been since you felt that bond? Rekindling that emotion requires open and honest dialogue. Take a deep breath the next time you start to skirt the topic or doubt your statements. There may be something that has been bottled up for far too long. Think about whether this discussion might help bring it to light. Be patient, open, and compassionate as you approach her. Kindly express how the stress is affecting you, and inquire as to whether she has something she has been suppressing. You wouldn't believe the number of problems that can be fixed just by talking things out. There are others who can help you deal with the unknown. Your relationship deserves the chance to become stronger, so face these challenging topics head on. It's about getting past your fears and rekindling the mutual understanding and trust you previously had. Keep in mind that relationship ups and downs are common, but if you and your partner feel like you're always on high alert, it's time to face the problem head on and figure out how to return to a level of comfort where you can express yourself, share laughter, and be understood without worrying about hurting anyone's feelings. Have you ever felt hesitant to tell her how you really felt for fear of her reaction? Are you able to recall an instance when the two of you were able to communicate with ease? Give it some thought, and then we can discuss ways to alleviate this stress and restore the trust and security you once enjoyed.